You are listening to the Superpower Radio Show with your host, Brenda Major,
Mia Dawson.
and we are thrilled. We have a special guest with us. I mean, we think all of our guests are special, but she's extra special. And I am excited because I'm going to be learning a lot from both Dr. Leanne and Mia today. We're going to be talking about, well, I'm going to let them actually tell you. Because I know a lot of our listeners have questions about, you know, various treatments and how do
Yes.
I get my kid to eat this and
Yes.
his
Mhm.
response going to be to that. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I'm really curious. But before we get started, I just want to remind our listeners that yes, we have a physician on the show, but Mia and I are not physicians. We not diagnosticians or specialists in the field of autism or autism spectrum. We are always going to be advocates for those who are caring for people with superpowers. And
Yes.
so we are always looking for the best advice and the best way to support you and to give you some additional insight. And so that's what we are doing today. So we do have our special guest, Dr. Leanne Trosto. Welcome to
Mhm.
the Supercar Radio Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So now, tell me how you and Mia connected, because you're a chiropractor as well, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I'll give you a little history of me. So I went to Illinois State and got my first bachelor's degree in physical education and did not feel as though I had finished my journey. And so then I went to massage therapy school and finished that training and become nationally certified as a massage therapist. And
Mhm.
I've probably been a massage therapist for 30 years now. And then while I was there, the anatomy and physiology instructor was a chiropractor. And he said, you know what? You should really think about chiropractic school. And I had never even heard of chiropractic. And I'm like, huh? And he explained it a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that's natural. I like natural. Right.
Mhm.
And so I said, okay. So I went to chiropractic school and graduated and was in clinical practice for about 16 years. And I love my patients. I love what I do. But what I had noticed that I wasn't getting the results that I had been getting before with my patients, and I could not figure it out. And so for me, what I want to do is I want to undercut and I want to find out, okay, if this isn't working, then what do I need to do to find out what will work?
Mhm.
And I sought for several years and I found nutrition response testing. And through since 2015, I've been a clinician and now I'm a master clinician with nutrition response testing and helped many people. And I was giving a health talk, and beautiful Mia showed up with some of her other family members, and they were gracious enough to listen to me talk and share my vision and my passion about nutrition response testing and my successes that I had had with other people. And they were interested, and we talked afterwards. And I said, I would love to do an evaluation, do an examination of Neo, and they agreed, and it's been history since then.
Hmm.
Was it the rest of it? Yeah. So yeah.
So Brenda, Sparkle is my sister, listeners. She was there first, and then
Mhm.
she kind of told us she had went to one of Dr. Leanne's health talks, and then she told us, hey, Sparkle called me. It's like, hey, sister, she's doing stuff with autism. She's helping autism. You got to come to the next one. So then I came to the next one.
Okay.
Loved what she was saying, didn't understand what she was saying, how she was going to help them, but we loved what she was saying. And I think the one thing that really got Stefan and I from that very first meeting that she talked to us, she said, hey, this is not going to be quick or easy, but I will get the results to help him and get him healed. And I think with her setting that expectation, we weren't sitting around thinking this is going to happen in 30 days, this is going to happen in 2 weeks, but she kind of told us, hey, this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. But if you hang with me, I promise you I can get the results that you guys are wanting. And she wanted us to get involved as a family and not leave Neo out there by himself.
Sure.
And so Stefan my other youngest son, Isaiah, and I were both suffering from different ailments. And so she said, hey, I can kind of treat the whole family as a whole so that Neo would not feel by himself. I didn't realize how big a change this was going to entail with us having, she's going to talk about that, having us to change our food and routine. And so we kind of went into it as a family. We're going to go, it was for Neo, but we're going to all go in it together and not leave Neo out there by himself.
Okay. So, I have to ask Dr. Leanne, what in the world is nutrition response testing?
Yeah.
I'm out of the help.
Yeah. So, it's really the coolest thing in the world, really. I know I'm a little biased, but it is absolutely amazing. So it's just a non-invasive way of evaluating the body, right? To determine if there's any ill health. And then once we determine if there is any ill health, then we use safe, natural, genuine replacement parts, is what I call whole foods. Genuine replacement parts for these areas of the body, the cells, the tissues, the organs, or the function that aren't working, to bring about a state of optimum health, right? So a person can recover their health, or like Mia was saying, they didn't really feel too terribly bad, but they've achieved higher and higher states of continuing health. And that is basically, it's very scientific, it's very precise.
Yeah.
You guys know what, like, if a person's having heart pains, chest pains, they go to the hospital and they hook those electrodes up to their chest, and then they connect it to a machine, and the machine prints out a graph and says, oh, this is what's going on in your heart, right? So with nutrition response testing, instead of me using electrode pads, putting them on the areas of the body, I use my hand. And what I'll do is I'll apply the hand over those organs, the skin over the surface of those organs. And then with my other hand, I will use the patient's extended arm. Now, when I put pressure over an organ, if it's an active organ, meaning that it's stressed or not functioning at 100%, the nervous system will say, hey, we've got an emergency at the organ. It will shunt energy away from that person's extended arm, and that arm will drop and become weak. And that lets me know that that area that I've just touched under my other hand, whether it be a heart or my brain or my stomach or whatever, is actually not functioning at 100%. And then I go about discovering what is actually at the root cause of the problem. And then we develop a design clinical nutrition program specifically for that person. And I've seen hundreds, and in my clinical experience, I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of people, but never is one program ever been the same. It's specifically individualized for each person, which is awesome, right? So it's not cookie cutter. It's very specialized for the person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mia, you mentioned that, you could see that this was going to be a good thing for Neo. What was he experiencing, and what's been the change?
So for Neo, we've talked about this very, very small on the radio, on the show, but him having some of the stimming and all of those things, I was trying to, me personally, I want to know where was that coming from. And Dr. Leanne was leading that a lot of this stuff was going on in his brain. So when she did those testing, there was aluminum in his brain, there was metals in his brain. Now I knew that, but I couldn't get nobody to believe that's what was going on. And so she was able to get the nutritionist response testing to show that these things are going on in his body, and how to extract those out, that he had all this aluminum, and he had all of these metals in there. And that was causing some of the things that's going on in his brain. He was also having, his diet was horrible, which he's going to talk about, because most superpower kids like all that sugar and that sugar. So he had issues with his teeth, and he had other issues. And so me not knowing how to handle it was kind of like, okay, at least he's kind of quiet. I'm going to let him have the sugar and then go on with my life. But she kind of set up a plan of how, I remember, this is so funny, Bert. I remember she was like, I think Nehemiah was eating like 3 or 4 oatmeal pies a day. And Dr. Leanne, and yeah, what I'm saying, because And Dr. Leanne was like, he's gonna have to get off. I was looking at her like, he ain't getting off. You crazy. I said, you gonna come to my house? He's not getting off this stuff. And so she kind of set it up where okay, we're not going to take all of it away from him. You're going to start off really slow. Take
Mhm.
one away. Now take two away. And I am here to say, listeners, he does not even think about oatmeal pie. He's not had one in 5 years.
Now that you think
Not had
about it,
oatmeal pie. No, he has
I
not had an
haven't seen
oatmeal
him
pie.
around one.
No, he has not had an oatmeal pie in 5 years. So just um him with all the kind of it was causing the stimming stuff with his brain, the food. I knew there was an issue. I just didn't know how to combat it. And so when she started, we started with her, it started off, I was like, oh, okay. And I seen results. I said I would see results in 30 days. I was seeing little bits of
Wow.
something changing within 30 days. And then it just continued, got now I have to say something else. When she first did the response testing, I was like, you've never heard of this before. And so you're like, is this really going to work? Now Neo was all bought in. He didn't understand. Isaiah did too. They're kids. Kids are more, they don't care. But I actually started seeing results in 30 days. I started seeing a change in everybody, all of us as a whole family.
Okay. So, Dr. Leanne, we know that it's a lot more difficult for people to get superpower kids to vary their diets. I mean, I
Yes.
can't
Oh
tell
my
you how
gosh.
many times I had to try to make a grape like Neo's friend so he would eat the thing.
Yes.
He never
You are
did.
so right.
Never.
You're so right.
But we've read that you have to introduce a food like 22 times. I don't know why 22, but what's been your experience, and how did you know that this would be a good technique to use for
Oh,
kids on the autism spectrum?
that's good.
Oh, with regards to nutrition response testing, it is amazing. So there's blood work, right? And then there's
Yes.
urinalysis, right?
Yes.
Well, nutrition response testing is just another way to evaluate a body. So I knew nutrition response testing would be great for him, because nutrition response testing is great for anybody that either has a dysfunction, an illness, or wants to improve their health, right?
Okay.
Anybody that can be actually tested. Nutrition response testing is just a different avenue to get the answers. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of running and it's right in time at that moment, where you take a blood test, it gives you just a snapshot of one point in time, right? Or your analysis. But
Mhm.
nutrition response testing at that moment, when I'm laying my hands and doing the muscle test on that body, is going to tell me whether or not a person is going to respond to nutrition response testing or not. So basically, if you have an arm or a leg, or a mother or a father that is willing to allow me to test and work with me, nutrition response testing is going to work. Really, the only thing that a person needs for nutrition response testing to work is a willingness to
Hmm.
allow me or a nutrition response testing practitioner to evaluate and examine the person in front of them.
And you
Okay.
have, how many more superpower kids do you have besides Neo?
Oh, many, many, many,
That's what I thought.
many,
Yeah.
many Asperger, like, on the
Okay.
spectrum.
Okay.
So all throughout, and
Okay.
now they're starting to categorize other people within this spectrum. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so many people of different ages that are within this group. So I really don't necessarily label a person. I'm not a big
Okay.
fan of labels. I
Mhm.
just
Okay.
look at the person in front of me and I'm like, what do we need to, here we are. What are our goals? Where do we want to get to? And let's do it. That's kind of how I look at it, you know?
Yeah, and I would agree with that. She kind of, I was a mess and Stefan was a mess, and she's like, nope, this is what we're gonna do. And we're gonna start here. We're gonna start really um slow. I really appreciate, I can't stress this enough, listeners. I really appreciate her not, even for me, taking away what we were eating that was wrong immediately, like snatching it out.
Yeah.
She did not do that. She's like, hey, that's gonna be an attack to the body because you've been using it. Because I had issues, female issues, listeners, and caffeine was affecting it. And so she's like, hey, I can't just snatch it out from there. We're gonna start off really slow, and then we're gonna remove it out your body. So I appreciate her not I think you think diets and you think you have to do it
Mhm.
immediately, and that's not what was said for Neil, for the whole family. It was a slow process, and then our bodies started to heal over time.
Dr. Leanne, would you say that there's an escalation of, reactions to
Oh my gosh.
things that
Mm,
people are eating
good
now?
question.
Because,
Good
we
question.
didn't hear so much about things like inflammation in the past. I mean,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know I and my sister are both lactose intolerant,
Oh,
and she's
yes.
and she's got celiac disease. So
Mm,
um,
mm,
there just seems to be, I don't know if we just didn't know what to call it, or
mm.
if our diets have been changing because of processed food, or what would you say is going on?
You
Yeah.
mean with autism and children or individuals that are
Or
being
anybody,
affected? Yeah.
anybody.
Or
Okay, so
anybody.
yeah, I can lay this down. Let's do this. Okay, so I'm gonna say it. What I found, the three main things that I find with increasing autism levels is the EMFs and the Wi-Fi and all those things, 5G. I have found the glyphosate and the pesticides, and then I found vaccines. And really
Mm,
around the middle 1990s, everything, it was like the perfect storm, unfortunately, but not good
mm,
for us. And we see the graphs go boom, straight up in vertical
Mhm.
with regards to autism. We saw a lot of increases in Parkinsonian like disorders, a lot of issues with regards to Alzheimer's and
mm,
dementias and
mm,
senilities. And then we really just saw a breakdown of the gut. We saw a lot of dysbiosis, a lot of autoimmune issues,
mm.
inflammatory issues, and it is just been getting worse every year. Autism, my goodness, it is basically like a forest fire. By 2036, if we do not change what we are doing, it's going to be 1 in 2. 1 in 2
Oh,
children are going to have autism.
Oh gosh.
One in 2. And I mean, it is heart wrenching,
Jeez.
especially knowing that it is something that can be prevented,
mhm.
something that
Mm,
we can do something about, So, when we have foods that are laden with pesticides and they're genetically modified, these pesticides like Roundup and glyphosate destroy the gut microbiome. They destroy the bacteria. It is an antibiotic. So it kills 4,000 good bacteria to every one bad bacteria within the body itself.
mm,
So it is creating a leaky gut syndrome, which then allows undigested food particles and other pathogens to enter into the blood system and create these inflammatory reactions within the body. And then we get heavy metals, which then have a proclivity and they like to go to the brain. So, boom,
mm,
you get a vaccine
mm.
laden with aluminum or mercury. It goes right into the brain. We have an inflammatory reaction within the brain. Boom, the child wakes up, the next day or even a month from now, and you start seeing the deterioration neurologically and quote unquote autism, or the child starts to begin on being on the spectrum.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
Okay. That is terrifying.
Yes, it
it is.
is. It is very terrifying
But
that
it's
it's
something
one
that
and
we can
two.
do. We can do something about it by continuing to educate, by continuing to get the message out, by continuing to not let people with an authoritative viewpoint be like, oh, you guys are just silly, you don't know what you're talking about. We actually do know what we're talking about. We see it every day, and we have the statistics and the graphs that show this correlation, and it's up to us to change it. Our voices speak volumes, and it does. When you get enough people together, united, people higher up, the authorities, congresses, they start listening because it's driven by the consumer.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah.
see that people are receptive? That's the word I want to use. Are they receptive since to the nutritious response, to the changes? Are you seeing that? Or are you kind of seeing people kind of like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing?
Oh man. So I had a gal, she presented into me with MS, right? She'd had it 10 or 15 years. Someone through the grapevine said, hey, go see Dr. Leanne. And so I put her on the table. I found specific things that were going on with her. I put her on 3 supplements, told her to cut out corn, right? Because corn is
Mm,
highly genetically modified. And she came back in 2 weeks. She had 3 episodes. Now, this woman had 15 years of chronic every day numbness, tingling, headaches, left-sided, the MS symptoms. So she came back in 2 weeks. She had 3 episodes. I gave her 3 more supplements. She came back in 2 weeks. She had 1 episode. I just monitored her body with the nutrition response. So she came back in 2 weeks. She had 0 episodes and has had 0 episodes thereafter. So it's not less and less people saying, "Hey, I want to get in." We've had, I mean, we had a waiting list of 70 patients. I just can't see the number of people that actually want to come into our clinics. And I have clinics in Missouri, I have clinics in Illinois, and so it's been wonderful. The outpouring of people that want this help, and I make it so that people can have it. You know, I make it, I educate patients. I let people know what's going on, what we're trying to accomplish, that this is healthcare, not sick care. And I kind of had a question for you guys that I wanted to ask, if it's okay. So would you say that a heart attack is sick care or health care when a person has a heart attack?
Wow, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
I'm gonna say it's healthcare, because there's got to be signs that lead up to that typically, wouldn't you think?
Not necessarily, right? So some of the first signs of a heart attack is the heart attack itself, right? And so if a person is having a heart attack and they're going to the hospital, is that sick care or health care?
I would say that's sick care. They're going to the hospital.
It is sick care, and I'm going to lead. And these questions are good. So if a person has cancer, and they are going for care, is that sick care or health care?
I say that's sick care.
It's sick care. So if a person goes to yoga or works out, is that sick care or health care?
Oh, I see that's health care. Okay.
That's right. If a person goes to McDonald's and has a Big Mac and fries, is that sick care or health care?
Sick care.
I'll tell you that.
If they eat healthy vegetables and fruits and meats, is that sick care or health care?
Health care. Okay. Yeah. I see.
What if they go to church and get spiritually nourished? Is that sick care or health care?
Health care.
Right.
I get
right.
it.
So in our society, we have labeled healthcare as going to the hospital in a crisis situation to get something handled, to take the symptoms or the disease away. But healthcare is truly a journey through life, right? Like I was very, very sick 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I was clinically depressed, clinically diagnosed with severe depression, where I suffered every second of every minute of every day. And I made a choice. I said, I need to figure out a solution, or else I'm going to die. And so I changed my mindset. And what I think we have to do is change our mindset, change the paradigm of how we think about these things. It doesn't change in a minute. It doesn't change in a week. It doesn't change in a month or a year. I've been working on myself for 20 years. And you know what? I love it. It's a fun game. Games have freedoms, they have barriers, and they have purposes, right? Well, what do I want to be? Like, I'm going to be 52 this year. When I'm 88, I want to feel like I'm 38 and look like it too. So I have goals and things like that. That's preventative care. That's eating. That's working out. That's nourishing my spiritual soul. It's doing nutrition response testing. It's doing things in a preventative manner where everybody says, why are you going and doing that? That's stupid. What's the problem? You're not sick. You don't have any symptoms. Why would you go if you felt fine? That's actually preventative wellness care. It's not the sick care model.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. I appreciate it. That made it crystal clear.
Yeah.
It's about healthcare. And I think, it is going to mean that we've got to all beat that drum and get on the bandwagon and really live and model that healthy lifestyle. But society wants things hurry, hurry, hurry. Fast food, fast. I don't have time to cook. Yada yada yada. What would you say if you could give advice to just anybody who may be listening and may be thinking about, how do I change? How do I start to change? Start to think about changing. my lifestyle?
Yeah, great question. And thank you for asking. I start on gradients, right? So I start like with a category, like maybe it's the sugar and the like the carbohydrate category that somebody might be struggling with. And I start with one thing, right? So let's say somebody is eating an entire bag of Oreo cookies, right? Because that's real. I've done it before. You just sit down, they put chemicals in it, you just don't stop until it's empty. I start with one, and I'll be like, maybe I'll just have one less cookie today, right? And if somebody's like, oh, I can't do that, well, then maybe just a half a less cookie today, you know? And then put that in, and then maybe a couple days later, maybe I have one and a half less cookies. And it's a slow journey, you know, because nothing is lasting. You can't take a pill and lose 50 pounds in a month and it be lasting. You can't, you know, you can't cheat on an exam and get an A and it be lasting, you know? And so, you know, you've got to slowly make these changes so that your body physiologically, one, your body is sugar is an addictive substance. It's more addictive than cocaine or heroin. So when you're trying to actually wean yourself off of sugar, you've got to do it nice and slowly. Your body's going to kick back and you're going to be like, I can't do this. There's no way I can do it. And so the way I did it, because I actually was really bad and had a sugar addiction, I just decided to eat one less thing a day. And then it got to a point where I realized that my taste buds were changing, right? Because I replaced the sugary foods with maybe something like some grapes or an apple or something else that I found to be really delicious, but it was actually nutritious as well. So I kind of started baby steps.
Okay, that's great advice. You know, we always ask our guest on the show, because this is a superpower radio show, and I've already gleaned a lot of your superpowers, but I want you to tell us, what would you identify as your main superpower, Dr. Leanne?
My purpose. I am driven by my purpose. I love what I do. My patients are not my patients. When they walk in our clinics, they become our family. And I treat every single person the way I would treat my loved ones. And I believe it's my purpose that drives me and will continue to drive me. And sometimes people come in and I said, I don't do this for the money. I do it because I'm on purpose and it feeds my soul. And our statistic in our office, my husband, our statistic that we go by is number of smiles that leave our office. That's the way we rate whether it was a good day or not.
Okay, well, you got us both smiling now, so I'd say you're doing really well. You know, we're definitely going to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
There's so much more, and I just feel that passion, and I have a ton more questions. So we're definitely going to have you back. But for now, listeners, this is the Superpower Radio Show with your host, Brenda Major, and
Mia Dawson,
and our guest, Dr. Leanne. And you will definitely hear from her again.
You sure will. Bye, guys.
Bye.